Hi Data Lovers, my name is Angie and this is Insight Bites with Dexibit. Today we're talking about experience as an integral part of visitor management to get happy and engaged visitors with great outcomes, and a bit of a dive into Net Promoter Score or NPS as just one aspect of voice of the visitor. When I see plain old satisfied percentages on a visitor attractions dashboard, usually sitting stagnant in the high 90%, it always makes my heart sink a little. I can just imagine the bias that creeps into a question like that, especially if it's posed face to face. And you have to wonder just how useful this metric is to their management team, or whether it's more a check in the box than insightful. That's why we recommend using something called Net Promoter Score, or NPS, as a way to measure visitor satisfaction in terms of loyalty, as the percentage of customers rating their likelihood to recommend your venue to a friend or colleague. It's not just industry best practice for visitor attractions, but globally throughout all frontline industries, and it's even something you can adapt for non-customer facing scenarios too. At Dexibit, we use this internally as part of our employee satisfaction review each quarter to measure ourselves on how we're doing in serving our team. NPS dates back to the early 2000s, and it was introduced in the Harvard Business Review by the team at Satmetrics. I love that it's not only standardized, but it's nice and simple too. Though of course, like any method, it's got its critics as well. How it works is you ask your visitors the question, how likely is it that you would recommend, insert your venue name here, to a friend or colleague? And then you give them a score of 0 to 10, where 0 is not at all likely and 10 is extremely likely. And then after you've asked them that question, you usually give them a free-form remark to say why they chose that score, which is a great opportunity to capture that voice of the visitor that we'll get into shortly. There's a lot of ways you can implement this around the visit, maybe for your membership base, perhaps a specific activity like an exhibition you have on, and you can do that on site in person, or with a touchpad or kiosk, or as an email follow-up, which is probably the easiest and the most powerful. And you might even eventually want to integrate a dedicated tool for that as well, like what our friends over at a software company called Ask Nicely have to offer. Your NPS question can be ideally a standalone touch point, or you could incorporate it as part of a wider follow-up campaign or survey. You of course probably won't get everyone replying, but that's okay. You might even not necessarily ask your entire database to begin with, but just a sample size of a few percent or more, that's a good start. It's super quick to do, so you shouldn't need to incent people to do it. And given it's an industry standard everywhere, a lot of customers are getting really familiar with NPS themselves, so they know what to expect too. But the real magic comes in how it is calculated. What you do is you take your detractors, which are the people who gave you a score of 6 or less, and then you subtract that percentage from the percentage of respondents who were promoters, which are people who gave you a 9 or a 10. And you'll notice that there we ignore the passives in the middle, which are the people who scored us a 7 or an 8. So NPS equals percentage of promoters less percentage of detractors, and that's it. This calculation is going to give you a score somewhere between minus 100 and plus 100. Anything under 0, as you can probably guess, is bad news, and anything over 30 is considered great, and ideally if you can get that number up over 70, you're doing really, really well. It's a great number to monitor over time, to analyze for trends and patterns. Does it change on a school holiday? What about the weekends? How do your exhibitions compare? How do members compare to visitors? And how does that differ by member product? So much to dig into here. I hope you'll be an NPS promoter and get asking your visitors if you and your team would benefit from experience insights to help increase your visitor happiness. Then talk to us about Dexibit's forecasts, insights, dashboards and reports, including for visitor experience. And I'll see you next time for another episode of Insight Bites, or check out Dexibit.com for more on visitor management and big data analytics for places people love.